Greetings, good people, and a very warm welcome to you all. Today I attempt to answer one of the most frequently asked questions by you, the viewers. You often see me restoring the cases, making them look shiny and new, but sometimes when I'm servicing a vintage movement with scratches and tarnishing, a lot of you ask why we don't also polish and replate the movement. Well, the movement parts are made with really fine tolerances, so if I were to polish up a main plate and replate it, then that would change its dimensions. And so when I put a bridge onto the main plate that's had material removed or added during polishing and replating, the pivots of the wheels and pinions will now be sitting too tight or too loose, so it can get very messy. But today, on this restoration of a Tudor I did for someone with a very rare movement, I decided to try and see if I could restore a movement part, in particular the automatic rotor. So as you saw, the rust has munched away at the screws, so the oscillating weight has just fallen off the rotor. I had no intention of doing this process, and the owner of the watch was even prepared to buy a rotor that he saw on eBay, which was ending very soon, so I had to make a decision. I personally thought I could salvage this rotor, but it didn't look too promising initially, and by then the auction had ended, and these parts don't come up too often. Someone is selling a whole movement on eBay for £2,500, and it's a caliber 390. So after 24 hours in some evaporust, I took out the parts and decided to give them a hand by manually trying to remove some of that gunk. The oscillating weight doesn't look too bad, but the rotor isn't looking too good, as the rust has penetrated beneath the plating onto the brass. And a little bit still left. The rotor still looks, all the rust is gone, it's just very stained, probably beneath the plating. So we went from this to this after a few more days in the evaporust. It'd be a miracle if this rotor comes up nice. And even though the rotor was now usable, it looked hideous. All the rust was gone, but the stains were like the teeth of a tobacco chewing villain in a western. So I decided to use a glass brush to remove some of those stains. Getting there, looking better than before. But that also ended up removing a lot of the old plating, which was inevitable. That's the rotor. After removing all the rust, it's lost a bit of its colour and it's just brass. So I'm just going to polish it up a little bit and then give it a little copper strike. I have some copper strike which is over a decade old and it's crystallized. If I leave it for another decade, it will probably turn into a 2p piece. So I'm going to try this process out first on a piece of brass, and I'll just brush plate it on to see if anything happens. I give the brass a quick wipe down with some alcohol and use a foam tip inside my stainless steel anode. Abracadabra. Oh yeah, I think it's working. I think because all my copper has solidified in the solution, it's not as effective. And I think I can actually tank plate the rotor. So now I'm preparing the surface of the rotor by polishing it, and this is obviously a part that won't be affected by any minute alterations by me polishing it up, as it isn't considered as a precision part, relatively speaking. And this thing is so skinny, as you can see. This is all experimental. The only way is up. And we've got the bearing which protrudes up a little bit, so I can't take it flat like that. So I'm having to do it by hand, bit by bit. Give it a little clean. Okay, here goes nothing. Oh shit. Oh yeah. I reckon if I cleaned that up properly, that would have been really nice, but that's alright, isn't it? So these are the parts where it polished up a bit too much and almost mirrored itself, so I don't know whether to start again and give it a straight grain and then try again. So I have decided to start again and give it a little more sort of brushed finish and then copper strike that. I think here is where the rust penetrated quite deep into the metal, so you can see the scars, but the rest seems okay. So let's try that again, give it a clean and try it again. So this is a small segment of a long restoration process, and hopefully I'll edit this one into a full video someday. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed this small episode on how to restore movement parts. Now check it out. That looks brand new. So thank you all for watching, and God willing, I'll see you soon. Ta-ra.